Hello and welcome. I'm Debbie Atek. I'm a Bering Straits Native Corporation shareholder and treasurer of the board of directors. Lately, I've been tracking the federal funding that's streaming into the state of Alaska for large infrastructure projects, and I've been curious about what projects those are funding and what small business opportunities may be available for Alaska Native businesses and other small businesses. My guest today is Tara Sweeney. She's an ASRC shareholder and the former Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs at the Department of Interior. Tara has co-established and implemented several strategic initiatives for corporations related to energy development on Alaska Native lands, taxation, access to capital, and broadband development. My big interest right now is really tracking large infrastructure projects, and one of the things that I can see that happens, I can foresee happening, is that these larger projects need some smaller businesses to come in around them. And I was wondering, in your experience, either maybe at your corporation or maybe in other jobs that you've had, what smaller businesses, how do they get started? How do they fill those needs? When do they start knowing that there's a need? Like when do the small businesses start to come in and shore those up?
So one thing that I've found is networking. And if you're a small business, expanding your network by going to different seminars or looking at the different resources that are out there. So let's say, for example, in Alaska, the University of Alaska has a small business development center. And I know several individuals who have taken advantage of the courses that they've offered and looked at ways to grow their business. In addition to that, I believe the Alaska Mental Health Land Trust may have also resources for small businesses. But expanding your network. I was just yesterday, I sat at an infrastructure roundtable that was put together by 4 different organizations: the Governor's Office, the IBEW, Associated General Contractors, and I believe, I'm going to butcher the association, but essentially it was the Association for Civil Engineers in the state. And they convened all different stakeholders from across Alaska to talk about kind of the big projects that are coming online and the importance for contracting opportunities, but also looking at the labor challenges that we may have in the state and how we can get in front of those challenges to ensure that Alaskans are going to work, the right Alaskans with the right skills in the right places, ensuring that we're utilizing and leveraging our human resources and our business resources to continue to make Alaska a state that people want to stay and grow in.
I really appreciate that you mentioned that there are these opportunities where people can go and network and to get some advice from people who are out there at the larger level, and then just talking openly about how the RFP process starts. So one of the experiences that I've had is learning from a smaller 8A company that there needs to be somebody who's kind of bird dogging what bids are coming up. So if a smaller Native corporation or a small business in a rural area knows that nearby a project is coming in, like let's say the Nome Port project, which is my favorite topic, they're going to need more trucking, they're going to need more shipping, and they're going to need to know when those RFPs are going to be coming up. But they're also going to need capital, and that leads me to a question that is this: regional corporations have typically more capital than the village Native corporations. And have you seen regional corporations either go in and co-invest, or have they invested in village Native corporations and to help them stand up businesses so that they can gain some, it's essentially the mentor, like apprentice, mentor protege model, right? Have you seen that happen? And if so, have both entities had positive returns.
I think if you look at every region across the state, there are examples of those types of relationships. And it may be with the regional corporation and a village corporation. You will see them either in a sort of formal mentor-protege relationship or a joint venture. Those types of partnerships do exist across the state. And it is extremely important to understand, what resources there are out there for, let's say, a smaller village corporation wanting access to capital. Understanding what the hurdles or those barriers are for the access to capital, and actually taking a look at what internal processes they may have in place that they could improve so that it improves their chances to the access to capital. There are several different ways to structure those relationships, and having, again, I go back to that strong network of friends, of allies, of confidants, of colleagues that you trust to help you walk through and almost game theory different scenarios, understanding where your vulnerabilities are, doing a risk assessment, and what are the contingency plans. Going back to that network to help you structure the right kinds of deals.
I think that is such sage advice right there, what you just said. So I'm at a smaller ANC. I see that there's an opportunity maybe to bring in a barge. Maybe there's an opportunity for one, like a small operator for a barge. And then they need to think through the opportunities, how much businesses are going to be, who are they going to be competing against, how many days are they going to be able to operate? Mm-hmm. What are some contingencies if they only invest in one? What happens if they...
We saw it in Nome several years ago when the fuel barge couldn't make it in because of weather and the impacts that it had across the region.
Right, it rippled out.
And right. the tremendous effort into ensuring fuel was delivered to the Bering Straits region. So in instances like that, as a small business owner, individual business owner, or a small corporation, it's really important to put the diligence and the work into developing that business plan and what contingencies you have. Again, going back to looking at the risks and the vulnerabilities, your liability, and game theory that all the way to the end, so that if an unfortunate circumstance presents itself to your business, you're still prepared even in a surprise moment.
So I just want to mention that for game theory, if you're not familiar with that, game theory is taking a look at a situation and saying, if this happens, then what? And then you're just looking at every single scenario that you can think about, mm-hmm. and then you're assigning probabilities, mm-hmm. and then you're saying, what's the outcome in that? And then you're effectively trying to figure out the expected value of a project, mm-hmm. and whether or not it's going to be profitable. At least that's how I'm thinking about it when I hear you talking about game theory. Exactly. Okay, just wanted to make sure that we're on the same page. And I appreciate you talking about all of that. There were a couple of other things that I wanted to touch on today, and you mentioned a smaller ANC and the need for capital. One of the things that they also need is a track record. And this is where the mentor-apprentice, mm-hmm. I'm saying it wrong. Protege yeah. Apprentice, mentor-apprentice is from language work. Uh-huh. So the mentor-protege. So being able to work with someone who has experience is, I think, very vital. And I would love to see more of that. And you've mentioned before the importance of having a really strong trilateral, and I just wanted to mm-hmm. see if you could touch on that, about how some of us who are from Alaska, and I don't assume that everybody who's watching will know what trilateral means.
Sure.
So can you just talk about why that is important to you, in your opinion, and what people gain in those communities where they have those trilateral entities?
So I'm going to go back a little bit and then lead up to it. As you and I and some of your viewers may know, Alaska definitely is a unique state our governance structures are extremely unique, and that sounds so cliche, but it is so true. And the way that we are structured in the Alaska Native community with federally recognized tribes, with Alaska Native corporations, and with state subdivisions like incorporated city or borough, there are many layers of governance and authorities that come with those specific governance stripes, but they don't necessarily overlap. And so what we're seeing across the state in different regions is these separate entities who historically may have operated in silos before. What we're seeing is this focus and attention on doing what's best for the region and really coming together. So when I talk about trilaterals, you can look at the Northwest Arctic region, you can look up on the North Slope, where you have the state chartered city organization, your state incorporated Alaska Native Corporation, whether the village or, well, the village, and the regional corporation, and the tribal entities coming together, working together for the improvement and growth of that community, and in larger cases, the region.
I hear what you're saying, and I feel like it might be a little bit easier said than done to bring some of those parties to the table if they haven't historically worked together.
Sure.
So I won't use any specific village as an example, but I just know that in some communities there is a divide between, say, the village IRA and the local village Native corporation, where they're not on the same page, or they think that they're at odds, or so looking ahead, I think about how important it is for those communities, and also including the municipality, if those communities would work together, the trilaterals, and consider the strengths that they each offer. Some of them have access to funds. Let's say municipalities have access to funds that the other two don't have, and vice versa, right? So I feel like if those villages that have that issue, they can find some way to mediate and come together, come to the table, and really plan as community planners do. Like, let's say the city of Anchorage or any other city, a bigger city, they have bodies like a planning council.
So here's the challenge, and this is a challenge that I think we should just issue to our leadership and those in leadership positions within our Alaska Native communities, is we've got to strip away the notion of the competition in our communities, that these entities that are established through a Western mechanism designed to be competitive, we need to strip that notion away, first of all, and switch the lens.
Absolutely.
Switch that lens, because what we're seeing is the resources coming to our regions, to our communities, we're challenged because each entity that receives, let's say, funding or a grant or some sort of partnership is not enough to go around. But if our organizations were to leverage those resources and compile their authorities and those benefits, there's enough to go around. And so the challenge really is, what kind of leader do you want to be? And for those that are coming up into leadership positions that are, of a younger generation than where I'm at, that's my challenge to them, is what kind of leader do you want to be? And are you willing to challenge that status quo, change the lens, and come together?
I love that. I think that it puts the onus on our upcoming leaders, and that's something that I did want to talk about with you, about where we see the ANCs in the next 50 years.
I think still a significant economic driver to our state and to our regions. before I answer that, I want to go back to the challenge for the next generation. There are ways to do it where you can challenge the system, but still do it respectfully. And what I've seen in the work that I've done and the experiences that I have, and what has absolutely never failed me, is using my Inupiaq values as a guide to how I conduct myself in business. So I want to put that aside and go back to your original question.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I do think that as these Alaska Native corporations grow larger and larger, I do wonder about how we keep our Inupiaq values, or, from the other regions, Dena'ina, Dena'ke, Tlingit, like how do we maintain that identity within the culture, the corporate culture? Because in some ways it's a very different approach to the way that we communicate, and also how we think about the bottom line. And so I'm just glad to hear you say that. So I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to say thank you for bringing that up.
It is important, and it goes back to where will ANCs be in the next 50 years. And they have an extremely important place in our Alaska Native community, but in the greater state of Alaska as well. And when the land claims was passed and you saw this shift going from tribe to ANCs in terms of focus, I think in the 70s you saw that shift take place, and then the seed of competition was born, and for decades we've seen that. But again, going back to where they're going to be in 50 years, it's about bringing the regions together, about erasing the walls between the organizations, and really working to empower our people, to provide the opportunities that ANCSA so envisioned and promised, and to continue to promote the connections that we have to our identity and our culture. Make no mistake that the charge of Alaska Native corporations is to provide benefits to those shareholders, but those benefits look different in every region.
Right.
And in 50 years, I would hope that that we would see that the regional corporations and the village corporations continue along this path of empowerment and strengthening our people. And that is education empowerment, cultural identity empowerment, financial empowerment. That's self-determination.
Right, exactly. I think that is so vital to keep that importance right front and center. What concerns me, to be honest with you, is the flow from our villages to our urban centers within the state, and then some of our people flowing out into the lower 48,
yep,
and trying to encourage them to come back and to get involved, and where's the place for them. Or if some of our shareholders and our descendants have been raised outside, how do we communicate with them? And I think, my opinion personally is, it's incumbent upon us as the corporations. I'll speak since I'm a director on a corporation, but I think it's incumbent upon the corporations to help the younger people, the descendants, to understand your birthright under ANCSA is to be a co-owner in this corporation that holds the right and title to your lands that belong to your people. Mm-hmm. If you grew up in Wisconsin or Evanston, Illinois, you have a connection to these lands. And I really want people who are outside eventually to get that message, because I do think that we're seeing across all of the corporations that a migration. Village people are moving, some are moving to centers where there's greater health care. People are aging, so some of our original shareholders are now centered in hubs where there's more health care available. Or some people are leaving for education, and I just want people to know that this is something that we need to care for as a corporation. We talked earlier, you mentioned how there is something that corporations are expected to give back, to provide dividends, to be successful, to be profitable. And I 100% agree. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we're raising descendants with the awareness that you have, if you choose to be involved, a responsibility to be aware of our corporations, to make sure that we have good leadership that are at the helm, and that we're sticking to our traditional values. Because this is a whole new experiment, right? Transferring indigenous land rights to a corporation.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit weird. So that's my soapbox.
It's important that we promote an environment where our corporations help those who may be geographically distant from the headquarters or the region to understand why we are who we are. I strongly believe that. And some regions are further ahead and some have a lot of room to grow. But it is important that each region take a look at how they're basically opening their arms and enveloping their shareholder base. And it comes down to communication. And what's so amazing about today is, I mean, we have social media.
Right.
And we have that opportunity to connect with shareholders of all ages, whether it's through, Facebook Live or X or TikTok or Instagram. Right. I mean, there are so many other platforms out there, and there shouldn't be any reason that shareholders are not informed.
I love that. And I want us to just end there. I think that we could probably talk for several hours.
I
hope that sometime we'll be able to be on a panel or something somewhere and we can keep talking. But I just want to thank you so much for coming over and sitting down and talking with me, and also with people who are watching live today. And then this will be edited and we'll put it up on the website, and I hope that people will get as much out of it as I did. I just want to thank you.
So this is AFN, and
right.
This is such a great time. What people can't see behind the computer, I have my niece Arlo here, and at AFN, anytime that I had an opportunity to say hello to my Akame in Utrecht, I would. She's no longer with us, but she's always here. So I know hopefully my Anakanik, Glenn, is watching, the entire Amarumak and Panigil families, and my Aunt Marilyn, two women that I absolutely adore. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to give you a hug.
Thank you.